What's up everybody, it's Victon here with an update for my Forbidden Rite Totems build guide. It's not going to be too long of a video here, but I did want to talk about some of the gear choices that I have made when stepping into the min-max version of the build. It's a pretty interesting build. I don't think there's like too much you can do to like mega min-max this build, which is kind of interesting compared to some of the other builds out there where you can spend, you know, tons and tons and tons of exalts. But I do think this build actually kind of caps out at around probably somewhere between 15 and 20 million DPS, which of course is still more than enough, especially in today's world where that is probably some of the top DPS you're going to get out of any build out there. But what I want to do is kind of just show you guys the items that I have chosen, kind of where I've settled at. I've done a whole bunch of different variations of this build so far, so I'll talk about them and explain the reasons for why I have settled at these items. I'll also kind of go over some of the gear pieces that I would like to upgrade, so you guys can also have some ideas of some upgrade choices. And just so you guys know, I'm gonna, at the end of the video, of course, I'm gonna put some updated gameplay as well, so if y'all are curious about what that looks like, go ahead and pop on over to the end of the video. Of course, timestamps are going to be in the description below, and you guys will see I think I had some tier 16 maps where I was doing delirium farming, getting, you know, 160 splinters, something like that. I had some abyss boss kills. I've been actually doing a lot of Lyra Athane breach farming, so I've got some, you know, Olnatol, some Cheula stuff in there, just so you guys can kind of see what it's like with my current setup. But since I did my last video, I have actually gained quite a bit of life. We have pretty much a very similar but also very different setup here. I think last video I ended up at like 3,800 life. I was a little bit more focused on DPS. I think overall we only lost about 500,000 DPS, but we gained so much defenses, and because we switched up the build a little bit, we were able to maintain a lot of that damage in the first place. So overall pretty good. We're sitting at about 4.5k life, 777 energy shield, which really doesn't really matter, but we've only got about 2k unreserved mana, which is decent, but there are a few pieces I have here that don't have mana on them, which we'll talk about here in a second. Yeah, so I mean, without further ado, let's just kind of hop into what the changes I have made. So I did get a new wand. I paid 7 exalts for this. There's actually not too many of these wands out there. The reason this was 7 exalts probably was because of that cast speed roll. Pretty solid cast speed roll. I think what I could actually do here is keep suffixes, reroll prefixes, and hope for a, you know, better spell damage roll out of that. So that's something I could do. I just don't know if I will do that, but overall this was a very good one. This gave me about 1.5 or something million extra DPS. Cast speed is absolutely huge with this build, guys, so getting as much cast speed as possible is very, very strong. Same thing of course with critical strike chance and critical strike multi, so pretty strong one there. It doesn't have mana, which is a bit disappointing. Like I said, doing that reroll prefix keep suffix might get me some mana, which would be very beneficial there. So that gave me a whole bunch of DPS. I actually went back to the rare helmet with the Forbidden Rite enchant that has additional projectile. I think that's probably better in my opinion than going with, like, if you have a Verity's Veil without the enchant, I honestly would probably just stick with a helmet like this with the enchant. It's so much DPS that you're actually losing. With the Verity's version, I just went back to it. I was doing a lot of Tropical Island delirium farming with the mirror, and it wasn't enough damage. I just lost too much damage. I wasn't getting to enough splinters to where I felt that it was, you know, in a good spot. So going back to this, and I'm pretty comfortably getting, you know, 150 to 180 splinters every time I'm doing the delirium farming now, so it's not too bad. So I definitely suggest this, and like I just threw on a greed essence here, and I was able to get that high life roll, and I just threw on a, you know, a cold res, so pretty easy to get that. Maybe we can even do some of this here for you guys, so you can kind of see what. Oh, you know what? It doesn't work here. I wonder if I have to update this. But Forbidden Rite fires an additional projectile. Maybe we can just go ahead and search in here, because I do kind of want to hopefully show this to you guys, so you can kind of see what it's. Let's see, Forbidden Rite additional projectile. I'm just curious what it costs. Yeah, they're actually not too. Wait a second. Projectile speed. That's not what we want. Forbidden Rite additional projectile. There we go. So yeah, it's not too bad. You'll pick one of these up for 50C, probably for an energy. Here you go. Like this one you could do for 40C and just craft on it yourself. Totally fine. Of course, you could get an eye level 85. Or maybe it's 86, it's 85 or 86. You would definitely want to check on that first, but then you could get nearby enemies have -9 to chaos resist on there. That would probably be an upgrade. I just don't necessarily know if I'm going to do that. Obviously, that's a pretty big damage boost. So that was definitely something you could do on your helmet. If you go with the Verdi's Veil, then you would have a different ring setup. So like I said, I switched it. So this is my new ring setup, and it's kind of interesting. So you definitely have to still stick with one ring that has, with my setup at least, 40% reduced effect of curses on you. Now with that, I actually do have on the tree, it sucks that it's 7 points to get all this, but you do have the ability on the tree to take all of these notes here. So 20% reduce extra, 20% reduce effective curses on you there, and then curse effect reduced here, and then also on the Pantheon we have Soul of Yugal, and then we've captured Varhesh for the extra effect there for 20% reduce effective curses on you. That brings us up to 100%. Doing that method right there gives us the ability to get a second ring that does not have curse reduce on it. So with that, I was able to just get a ton of resistances and life, and I had one open suffix which I crafted minimum endurance charge for mega DPS. Now this is absolutely crazy how much DPS this adds to the build, which was one reason I chose this version over the Verdi's Veil version. Because we are using Arn's Anguish, right? So minimum endurance charges turns into minimum brutal charges. And what is brutal charges? Players have 3% chance to do triple damage. So it's an additional 3% chance to do triple damage with that right there, with a one minimum endurance charge. Of course, you just remember you have to pick up this right here for maximum. So with that, we're at 5 minimum endurance charges. And we have, so 5 times, I think 3 probably. I'm not 100% sure how to calculate the actual DPS numbers here, but basically what that gives, like I said, 3% chance to do triple damage, which is pretty big. So very good, very good. Boots have stayed exactly the same. These are definitely best in slot. The 120% critical strike chance, if you haven't crit recently, that's absolutely best in slot. A pair of gloves that probably would be better than what I have is if you are able to culling strike and also have unnerve on there. The elevated unnerve is also super good. It comes with area of effect if you've crit recently, so pretty strong. Thinking out loud when I said that though, I'm curious guys, maybe somebody in the comment section will know if you've crit recently. Maybe that doesn't work with totems. Either way, of course unnerve will work. But I am curious about getting that extra AoE effect since it says you've crit. Either way, I have actually not changed my gloves here because these are pretty solid. 98 life, culling strike, and a res, pretty solid for me. That works. I did get a new amulet, and you guys can probably get these pretty cheap. I think I purchased this for 60 chaos, not too bad at all. Just high life, 1 res. I was able to get a little bit of mana on there. Critical strike multiplier and cast speed. Again, cast speed is very big. Critical strike multiplier is very big. And then I had an open prefix, and I crafted a proj speed and proj damage. You can also opt to craft the area of effect and area damage on here, but we have made a change to our 6th link, and we now include area of effect, awaken increased area of effect, so we don't need AoE in my opinion on the amulet. So if you do have awaken increased area of effect, no need to get AoE on here, but if you don't have that, I would probably suggest getting AoE on your amulet. And of course, make sure you get some dexterity on there because we are pretty short on dexterity. We allocate Ironwood, which is absolutely the best in slot for the Anoint right here. 30% increased totem life, and then just so much defenses for your totems and a whole bunch of armor for you. So very solid on that. We did get a new shield as well. We are going with a different strat here. So we have +1 to number of summoned totems. We got a little bit of critical strike chance, some life, and a little bit of resistances. And of course, make sure that is on a spell damage base. Now, the reason we're going with plus to number of summoned totems, we're actually not having multiple totems on our 6 link. So I'll go over our 6 link here. We also went with anomalous forbidden, right? By the way, so it's 9 additional projectiles instead of the 8 with a 21 gem and 7 with a 20 regular gem. So that's a lot more clear speed if you get anomalous forbidden, right? It's not too much of a difference compared to a level 20 forbidden, right? So just something to consider. I think it's like trying to remember how much it was. It was like maybe a few 100,000 DPS increase for a 20 anomalous compared to a 21 regular. So just keep that in mind. We do have, of course, still increased critical strike damage, and then critical strikes chance, and then we have void manipulation. So none of that changed. We do have faster casting. What changed is getting the increased area of effect awaken right there instead of multi-totem. So it changes the setup a little bit, and the reason we're doing that is because it does allow us to have more damage, okay? And it allows us to do this, right? So instead of, it kind of sucks you have to spawn a whole bunch, right? But we're having 5 totems, so we have 5, we don't have 6. This is the reason we don't have 6. I'm actually having wither on my totems, and it's on multi-totem. So I'm always gonna have 5 forbidden rite totems and 2 withering totems. And doing it like that, I actually have it over here. So spell totem, multi-totem, faster casting, wither. It like instantly gets them to up to 15 stacks of wither. So you have basically max damage almost right away when you have this set up. Another thing that you can do, of course, we still do have decoy totems. So sometimes in a really tough situation, I'll have my 5 forbidden rite totems, I'll have 2 withering totems, and then I'll pop down a decoy totem, which brings me down to 4, but that's still totally fine. We do so much damage anyway. It's really not a big deal. And that decoy totem is a freaking beast. That thing absolutely never dies. That thing tanks the feared. Like, it's crazy. The thing never dies just because how much defense we have. So yeah, back to our gear. That is the new setup for our 6 link. And that is the reason we had to get +1 to net maximum summon totems, so that we could have the extra totem for our withering totems. Because if we didn't have this, we would only have 4 and then 2, and you know, it's way more damage to have 5. We absolutely want to have 5. So that was my new shield. I think that is probably all the gear. I did set up my flasks a little bit differently. I can't remember if I mentioned this in the other video, but this is a lot of damage. Getting 50% increase effect on a dying sun. It brings your additional projectiles from 2 up to 3. It's mega DPS. This thing adds literally like 5 million DPS when you pop it, so really good for bosses. I changed my setup here very, very slightly. I just have, it kind of sucks having totems instead of regular casting. Like for example, on any other build where you don't have totems, you would do like use when you hit a rare or unique monster, but we are not hitting in this build. Our totems are hitting, so you can't use those. So what you could do is use stuff like this, like use when charges are full. Or like I just didn't get it on this one. I could do use when charges are full, but I did use when adjacent, so it's basically the same thing. So this is use when charges are full, and then I just have this one for chilled to remove my chill. And I don't die that much to chill anymore. So and then I have this one. I haven't even I haven't done too much of this. So this one's really just for the corrupted blood. And I basically, if I'm taking tons of damage, I'll just pop it, and it will give me immunity to corrupted blood. That's mainly what I'm using that one for. So nothing too crazy on the setup changing, but I do like this setup. Alrighty then, let's see if we can log back in. This is live, boys. Alright. Did y'all know that y'all could type /hideout and go back to your hideout? Very nice. Alright, cool. We're almost done with the gear setup here. But yeah, so like I said, there's multiple options. I think the Arn's Anguish belt is the better option compared to the Coward's Legacy. I know a lot of people do that, but if you have 5 minimum endurance charges, it's equal damage to a Coward's Legacy. Equal damage. And this thing is worth, what? Let's see. 19 chaos compared to, what, 8+ exalts for Coward's Legacy? So you do the math. I think this is way better of an option. Just me. And I definitely don't think going with the shield, the Aziri's Reflection, is good at all, because you're losing out on so much damage. from having that extra totem and also the critical strike chance. So I do not think that is a good idea. And like I mentioned, the Viridi's Veil, I don't know, it's okay, I guess, if you can get a Viridi's Veil with the enchant Forbidden Rite Fires and Digital Projectile, then it will be okay. But until then, I think the setup that I have is totally fine. So I would do that instead. Let's go over to our skill tree. Not a ton of changes here, but we did change a few things. Like I already mentioned, the main thing was we had to drop our second cluster over here to get just a whole bunch of extra life. I think we gained literally like 700 or 800 life doing this change, which was pretty crazy. And then we got all this curse reduction here. We picked up a couple jewel sockets here. Let me show you if I can see. So this is a best in slot jewel that I picked up for 5 exalts. So this is something that you would be wanting to look for if you're min-maxing. So some life, totem life, 12% totem life is insane, so much damage. And then critical strike multi, and then any other damage roll. So like projectile damage, you could get spell damage while holding a shield, just regular damage. There's so many different things. You get chaos damage. But at least the life, the totem life, and the crit multi, and that's a super solid jewel. 5x for that. Like I mentioned, you can usually get them between 4 and 6, I would say. And I think that's probably the only other change here that I did. I did switch out my large cluster. I have this one now: Touch of Cruelty, Unholy Grace, and a Wicked Pale. Let's see. So Unholy Grace and Touch of Cruelty are the two that you definitely want. Those are the big damage ones. This one can switch. Wicked Pale and oh man, what? There's another one that's, I think it's 30% chaos damage and something else. Maybe totem placement speed. Something else is another decent one. But you absolutely want at least these two: Unholy Grace and Touch of Cruelty, and then one more damage one. And then we did switch up our mediums as well. Because we only have 2 now, I switched it up. So we have Sleepless Sentries for that onslaught. That's definitely incredibly important. You want Ancestral Preservation on both of them because it is so much damage. And then we have Ancestral Echo alongside Ancestral Preservation. So Echo is pretty good for damage. 10% cast speed is very solid. And there's a few different options you can go with on this one, but you just need to make sure you at least get the Ancestral Preservation here. And let's see, I think that's probably all that we did on the actual tree. We did make a few gym changes as well, though. I can go over real quick. So we did, yeah, so up here. So I am not running because like I just mentioned, we dropped 2 medium clusters. Actually, I think we only dropped 1 medium cluster because we only had 3. But in doing that, we dropped the cluster that gives us Arcane Surge when we put a totem down. It's still totally fine to do it, but you're only getting 10% more damage from that Arcane Surge version, whereas if you have an actual Arcane Surge in your links here, it's actually more damage. It's 20% or 19% instead of 10, so it's an extra 9% more multiplier, which is pretty solid. The only downside is that you do lose mana. Watch this. You walk, you have it on your left click, and then you lose a little bit of mana. Not a huge deal, but it gives you a nice little shield too. It gives you about a 1500 shield, which is also pretty solid for defenses. So that is the setup I have now: a Decoy Totem, Arcane Cloak, Arcane Surge, max level, and increased duration. Min-maxing here would be getting a Divergent Arcane Surge for about 1 to 2x, somewhere in there. Would be a pretty good, I think it's like 10% increased buff effect, maybe something like that. So a very good pickup if you want to absolutely min-max that. Pretty nice though. The Decoy Totem works with the increased duration, so that's a nice little combo there. And we are also, since we're not doing the Viridi's Veil option, and I don't have Assassin's Mark on hit ring, I just have Assassin's Mark, Anomalous Assassin's Mark on just, you know, my regular bar. Not a huge deal, honestly. It's really not a big deal. I just auto cast it myself. I just cast it myself on bosses, and it's basically the same thing, right? We're still using Clarity and Vitality, and pretty much everything else is the same. Castman damage taken, Mortal Call, Withering Step, increased duration, all that good stuff. The best right here, Cast on Death Portal, because we do die in this build, my friends. Tons and tons of damage, but if you're doing like really big juicy maps, you're gonna die. It just kind of is what it is. Comes with the territory. but it's all good. We can still do all the in-game bosses, all the in-game content. You just might die a couple times. Really not a huge deal. We're in softcore after all, my friends. Flame Dash, and I think that pretty much covers those. So let's see if I missed anything here. Video's already a little bit longer than I kind of wanted it to be. I really think that's really it. As far as like, you know, upgrades that I would want to do, I would want a amulet that has all of this plus mana regen. My mapping partner has probably the best amulet in the league right now. It also has like 60% mana regen, and I'm super jealous of that. I would love to get one that also has mana regen on it. That would be fantastic. It would really help the mana regen, just because we do have that arcane cloak. So doing, you know, walking around, it would make this go up even faster. As you can tell, it's really not a huge deal, but just the fact that, you know, once you do that, it's instantly full is pretty nice quality of life. Outside of that, you could maybe get Assassin's Mark on hit on one of your rings if you really wanted to, but I think honestly just casting it yourself is totally fine. Like I said, getting a better wand, this is definitely already probably an S tier wand, but just going above and beyond is you would probably want more spell damage and also mana on there. My belt's best in slot, boots best in slot. I really don't think I can get a better shield if I'm not paying, you know, 10 to 15 exalts, which I just don't really think is worth it. The Verity's Veil, I don't think I want to do that personally. I don't know exactly how much it is, but you're going to be paying, you know, 10 to 15 exalts for a Verity's Veil with the enchant on it. So to me, that's just not really worth it, in my opinion. The setup that I have here is totally fine. So, I mean, I'm at a pretty good spot, I think. And I think if you guys are kind of around the gear level that I have, you guys are going to be absolutely crushing everything. I think overall, I have probably spent around, I don't know, maybe 40 exalts on this build. So not too bad. Not too bad, honestly. We can have many builds out there spend a whole lot more currency for about the same damage. I definitely think Forbidden Rite is probably just an S tier skill right now because of how insane damage it does compared to all the other skills. I wish the build was a little bit more tanky, but hey, it is what it is. We're still crushing all the content, so not too big of a deal. But yeah, I think it's really all that I had for the update. Some decent changes. The biggest thing just giving me pretty much equal damage, but we got about 800 life doing this setup, so I die a lot less with this setup, which is pretty nice. If any of you guys have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments. If anybody else is doing a different version of this build, I know there's a whole bunch of different versions, definitely let me know what's working out for you guys. That would be pretty cool to maybe check out some of y'all's versions as well. But yeah, that's all I got for this one, guys. I will catch y'all in the next one. Everybody have a good night or a good day. See you guys.